Hello and welcome to
Hi.
the first episode of
Whoop, whoop.
Living Richly with Curo. It's a long time coming, Atricia.
Yeah. This has been in the works for a while, but I'm excited. We're finally
Me,
here.
me too. I'm super excited. So my name is Anne McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo, and I'm joined by my awesome partner, Atricia. Say hello,
Hi.
Atricia.
Good morning. Oh, I guess I can't say good morning, huh?
Maybe it's morning wherever you're
Hi.
listening.
Yeah, wherever you're listening. Hi, I'm Atricia Roberts. I'm COO and partner here at Curo Private Wealth.
All right, awesome. So for this first episode, we were thinking it would be fun to share our stories about how Atrice and I got into this very male-dominated industry, because you don't see a
Absolutely.
lot of people who look like us in our industry.
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah.
But first, we're gonna do an A-team catch-up. So, Atrice, how was your weekend? What'd you get into?
With me and every weekend's an adventure.
That's why I ask.
This weekend it was no different. So the highlight, I guess, of the weekend was attending the after party for the Greater Washington Urban League's annual gala. I went back and forth on actually whether or not I wanted to attend the gala. I thought the after party would be more fun, which it was. So it was a nice time to get dressed up. Still an opportunity to network and socialize with professionals here in the DC metro area, but in a casual environment with an open bar, which is always nice.
Always nice. Nice
Always.
benefit. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
How about you?
So my weekend was a little different. It was a lot of kid activities. So I have a blended family and I have two boys and my partner has two boys. So we've got four between the two of us, ranging from 6 to 14. So this weekend we celebrated my 12-year-old's birthday all together and we went laser tagging, which was actually quite
Fun.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my partner and I got in there into the dark room and laser tagged. So he actually ended up number one on the board. You know, he was in the
Nice.
army, so he's got a
Oh,
pretty,
okay. The
pretty
unfair advantage.
accurate. I know, it really
Unfair
is an un
advantage.
yeah. But we were playing against teenagers who take this very seriously and are actually quite good.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was really fun.
Nice.
All right, Atrisa. So, like I kicked off by saying, most people in our industry don't really look like us, right?
No.
I always joke that the only two places where the line to the ladies' room is shorter than the men's room is the Super Bowl and a financial advisor conference.
And a financial advisor conference.
Because we hardly
Absolutely.
ever have to wait in line at the ladies' room, right? Versus there's
Yeah.
like long lines in the men's room. So, why don't you start off
Okay.
by telling everyone how you got into this industry?
Sure. So it's been actually a long, interesting road, I think, that has led me to where I am now. So in college, and I attended Florida State University undergrad, go Noles, always.
Woohoo.
I was actually a multinational business operations major and I minored in Spanish. My entire intention was to work in Latin America for a global brand. I'm originally from Georgia, so Coca-Cola was the like paramount of places to work for coming out of high school and college in Georgia. So that was my original intention. But during the summers, I would work at the bank as a basically like a seasonal teller. So I would float around filling in whenever I went home for the summer. So that's where I first got a taste, I guess, for the financial services industry was in banking. I had some personal issues in my family that kept me from being able to travel overseas after graduation. So I ended up accepting a job with what was then American Express Financial Advisors, where I started the licensing process. And then, due to some other family changes, had to leave that opportunity to move back home to be with family in Savannah, Georgia. And after a few months was given a similar opportunity at Merrill Lynch in their financial advisor program, which if you know anything about what that program was like in 2005, it was not an easy time. I was the youngest advisor in my office. I was the only Black advisor in my office. And I was one of three women in an advisor's office that I think had 15 advisors at the time. So probably even three in 2005 was probably a much higher
Was a
number
lot.
than
Yeah.
than a lot of places. But it was a very difficult dynamic for me to navigate. I mean, I was very young. I was in my early 20s. I was just getting a feel just for having a career in general, and then trying to navigate that in a world where I was so different and the pressure of the position was so high. And unfortunately, I didn't feel a lot of support. I didn't feel, um, I guess, sort of that same level of attention that some other young male advisors got in the office. I felt very much like I was figuring it out on my own. And then you couple that with where we just were at the time. So then now we start, of course, to approach 2007, 2008, as things are coming undone in the great financial crisis. And of course, Merrill being a central part of that, it became a very challenging environment. And finally, in 2008, I said, you know what, this business is not for me. It's not designed for people who look like me, who come from the places I come from. This is not my world, and I probably shouldn't be here. So unfortunately, I left the business and went back to school. I got a master's in communications. I worked in nonprofit for several years. I was like, I want to do good in the world. I don't want to just be forced to be chasing, dialing for dollars, as we would call it back then. I became completely altruistic in my career ambitions. But after a few years of that work, I realized this probably doesn't suit me as well either. So then I sort of split the difference and I got back into financial services, but again, back on the banking side because it was a place that I felt way more comfortable in.
What was it about the nonprofit that didn't really fully work for you?
Yeah, so I am a very mechanical person in the way that I think and function. It probably lends itself to why I'm our chief operating officer. I like systems and processes, and even at that time, especially being younger, there wasn't a lot of gray area for me. Things were either right or wrong or black or white. And in nonprofit, you kind of live in that gray matter. Sometimes things are one way, sometimes they are different. You're often having to accommodate so many challenges that you don't normally in just a standard corporate environment. And also, it takes an emotional toll. You have a heart for people and for doing good, but often you carry a lot of that with you. You take it home. And it's not that we don't take our work home with us now, but it's very different when you feel like the work you do could literally be life or death for a person. So it was something that was very difficult for me to handle. And I realized I was holding on to a lot of it and sort of uncomfortable in the role after a while. So getting back into financial services, I think appealed to my more mechanical brain, right? Numbers are what they are. 2 + 2 is always gonna be 4. It's just the way it works. So I really like that aspect of it.
And you still have the like, we're helping people and we're giving back and we're
Right.
actually, yeah, changing people's lives.
Right.
And
Yeah. And even on the banking side, which I think is less personal touch than the work we do now, you're still client facing, you're still providing people with solutions, you're still building rapport with clients, getting to know them. So you get that very caring aspect of it, but while also being able to do a job where I either did it right or wrong. And at the end of the day, even if I did it wrong, nobody's going to die because of it, right?
exactly.
So
Nobody's dying.
uh, so I think that appealed and it made it a little bit different for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was, of course, in my role at the bank that I met the original founder of our legacy firm here at Curo, Bernard Wolf and Associates, at least on the Rockville side. He was actually my client on the bank side. And having not known anything about my previous background as an advisor, previous having licenses and being on this side of the business, he basically sat at my desk one day and said, "Are you looking for a job?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Wolf, you're at my job. This is where we are now, at the
Yeah.
place where I'm currently employed." And he's like, "I just think you would be a really good fit for the business." He gave me his card, asked me to reach out if I was interested. It took me a few days to decide I was interested, but I did. And I think maybe 2.5 weeks later, I left and changed and got back into the business. And that's been now almost 7 years ago.
What was
So
your
here we are.
initial, yeah, here we are, thankfully. Thankfully.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction when Bernie said that to you? Were you like, no, no, I already decided that business is not for me. No, thank you. Or did you feel like an openness when he made that offer to you?
My initial response was no, no, I've already tried it. This business is not for me. It took me some time to process later that, wait, this is maybe a little bit reaffirming because I thought back to, I guess at that time, which would have been almost, would have been 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and how excited I was about the opportunity when I got it, and how I had all these great plans for how I was gonna change the world and change people's lives through, investment management and financial planning, and how that just sort of deteriorated for me. And I think his saying that to me was validation that the younger woman who felt really excited about the opportunity, that maybe I wasn't crazy, that maybe it was something I could have been really good at had I been in the right environment. And I think that's what ended up switching on for me, and what made me follow up was it felt like validation. Like, wait, he saw something in you, not knowing your background, that validates that the thing that you tried and felt like you failed miserably at was probably something that you actually could have been really good at. And I
Yeah.
think once I felt reaffirmed in that, it gave me the confidence to reach out and be willing to at least entertain the idea of coming back into the business.
Right. Right. And again, thankfully you did because you're an
Yeah.
amazing advisor and our clients are
Yeah, I
so
appreciate
fortunate
that.
to have you.
I
Yes, of
appreciate
course.
that. And I also believe that life will bring you eventually to where you need to be. Now, sometimes we make decisions that delays that process, or we make decisions that brings us closer. But I definitely feel like now at this age, after so many years of trying different things, that I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. And that
Yeah.
feeling to me is incredible. That's the thing that gets me through the hard days, the tough moments, the long days, the working on the weekends, is knowing that I'm where I'm supposed to be, which is
Yeah.
really, really nice.
Yeah. And last time around, maybe it wasn't the right time. Maybe it wasn't
Yeah.
the right location, right? I mean, I'm from
Yeah,
Georgia too, and maybe Southern Georgia was just
absolutely.
not the right place for you. And also I think that sort of taking the detour and going and getting a master's and then going into nonprofit also you bring to the table many things that you learn from that experience and that process. And so I think it was all part of your life journey to have you come back here because this is the
Yeah.
right time and the right space and the right place for you. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we laugh about it now that, I'm the editor of all of our material, but, and that comes from my experience in doing copywriting, when I worked
yes.
for
Yes.
different nonprofits. So yeah, all of it is now kind of created the toolbox that I have now that I'm able to use, not just in our practice, but with our team and with our clients, which I'm appreciative of.
Yeah, and so am I, because I always say I send you things, send you things over that look like a second grader did a PowerPoint, and you make them look beautiful. So
We're a good team. We're yin
we
yang.
are we are a good
Yeah.
team for
Well, I mean, to
sure.
that point, and again, we met each other a few years ago, but oddly enough, we have very similar starts
It
in this
is
business.
crazy.
Isn't it so odd?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
so much in common. We're both from Georgia for starters. So
Yeah.
there's that. It actually dates back to like when both of us were born. But
Yeah.
but yeah, but I also studied economics and Latin American studies in college. So I went to George Mason here in Fairfax, Virginia. And I thought I was going to go into economic development, like World Bank, IMF, Inter-American Development Bank, that kind of thing. And that was just like, I was done. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do in life. And my senior year, I had an economics professor who was from Latin America, and he actually worked at the Inter-American Development Bank, which is like the World Bank, but specific to Latin America. And he was like, I'll never forget it. He sat me down and he's like, Mija, which means like my daughter, like, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, oh, I've got it all figured out. I'm going to do World Bank or IMF or Inter-American Development Bank. And he was like, oh, interesting. Okay. So like, why, what is it about those
Yeah.
organizations that appeals to you? And I said, well, Latin America is so rich in resources and there's so much potential and so much opportunity. and yet they're not an economic superpower. And like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to change Latin America.
Right.
And he was like,
Change the
huh,
change the landscape of the entire country.
because it's so easy, right? I mean, if it were so
Right.
easy, many people would have figured it out before me. But yeah, so he quickly realized that I was in college. I had this idea. I was very naive, obviously. And I think thankfully he knew that just
Mm,
nothing bad about the organizations, but just the way that the organizations operate. He knew that I was going to be miserable doing those
wow.
jobs. And he was 100% right. And so he was brutally honest with me. And I remember feeling like my world had come crashing down on me, right? Like when you're 22 years old and you think you
Yeah.
have your life figured out, and then all of a sudden someone drops this bomb on you, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is, really overwhelming. I have no idea what I want to do now. So I put my resume online. We did have internet at the time when I graduated,
Yeah.
which was nice.
Surprisingly. We're not that
Surprisingly.
old.
I know, exactly. Some days I feel it. But so I put my resume out and I got like literally only a couple of calls. I had been working in banking. So just like you, I also
Hmm.
worked in banking. I was a teller and worked my way up. So I actually worked at the same time I was going to college. So I had some, finance background from that perspective, but I got pretty much two serious calls. One was a company to become a recruiter, and the second was American Express Financial
American
Advisors.
Express Financial
Another thing,
Advisors.
another connection with Atricia. So, yeah, so I went in for both of the interviews. I interviewed with the recruiting company and I interviewed with Amex. And Amex was really appealing to me because I remember the hiring manager said, in order to be good at this career, you need to have the heart of a social worker and the mind of a capitalist. So it kind of comes back to you, right?
Yeah.
You got your not social work, but you got your nonprofit,
Right.
scratch itched. And I too wanted to help people, but I've also always known something about myself, and that's I like living a good life and I like making money. Like I have a I have a brother who is a social worker and he does very well for himself. But it's that is a certain decision that you make and
Absolutely.
has financial consequences to it as well. So this really appealed to me, this idea of like helping people, but also being able to
Yeah.
make a good living for myself. And the idea too that I was in charge of how much money I made and how much success I had and how much I grew my practice, that was all within my realm of control. Now, I had to work my, tush off to
Right.
to make that happen. Very long hours, but that was really appealing to me. But I remember there was, no salary. So it was basically just whatever
Hmm.
business you brought in. The hours were insane. So I worked like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and also worked on Saturday morning. And it was basically cold calling. We did some like
Yes.
lunch seminars and stuff like that, but it was really, really hard. And I remember my mom was like, is this really why you went to college? Like, what exactly is appealing to you?
Yeah.
And then my dad, who has always been an entrepreneur, was like, "Oh, this is great. Go learn from the big company. And then, in the future, you can start your own business and kind of do your own thing." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good to me." So I decided to go against the recruiting job, which was, by the way, salary, very
Hmm.
decent hours, things that probably any sane person would have signed up for, as opposed to what I ended up signing up for. But again, like you, thankfully I did because it's, brought me to where I am. And I too feel like I am doing my life's work, which feels
Yeah.
amazing every day. It makes it all very worth it. So I worked for Amex for a few years, grew my practice, and then I was recruited by UBS, which is a Swiss-based, what they call a wirehouse, like a big investment firm.
Hmm.
And that was an interesting transition, very different culturally from American Express, which then very shortly after I was hired became Ameriprise Financial.
Right.
So culturally very different, but it gave me some more of the wealth management exposure. Amex was very good with the planning and the insurance, but UBS was definitely stronger from a wealth management, investment management standpoint. And that's been good if you fast forward to the work that we do here, because we definitely bring in financial planning.
Absolutely.
We always start with a plan, but we also, manage people's investments. So I think the different backgrounds from those two firms have been helpful to bring to the table today. So worked for UBS. Also, financial crisis hit. UBS was also hit similarly to Merrill Lynch. It was a very, very scary time. So
Yeah.
in early 2010, I actually went independent and launched a firm using Wells Fargo as our kind of back office. And so I did that for a while, moved to another independent broker dealer, and then was introduced to Blue Spring, which is how you and I came together. And that was back in 2021. So
2021.
yeah, mid 2021. So I actually sold my practice to Blue Spring Wealth Partners, and they introduced me to Atricia and Atricia's firm, which we call the Legacy
The legacy
BRW.
BLW.
Yes, also known as the Rockville, Maryland office. So Atricia represents on the Maryland side, I represent on the Virginia side, but it's been, I guess, this summer will be 3 years since we came together and
Yeah.
merged, and it's been awesome and a lot of work and just really great. So
Time flies when you're having fun.
it does. And I'm really grateful that I get to work with you every day and our awesome team and our awesome clients. And it's just a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I am too. Just one question I
yeah,
have, and I don't even know that you and I have really talked about it, but in that merger, given the retirement of, my legacy founder, and we took on the Curo brand, and of course, we talk about what Curo means, but tell me about that story. Like, how did you come to this is who I want to be in my practice?
yeah. So when I went independent in 2010, I had a partner. So he and I worked together. We were both advisors at UBS. And when we started our firm, we just basically took our last names and put them together, and
Hmm.
that was the name of our firm, which was fine at the
Yeah.
time. But when we split our partnership up and went our separate ways, it was really important to me to have a name of a firm that really stood for something. And I
Mm.
also wanted it to be more than just my last name. Like, no offense to anybody who has their last name on the door, that can work very well.
Right.
But I knew I wanted to build something that was bigger than just myself. And I do feel like when you name your firm after yourself, there's always this perception
Right.
even about like the
Hmm.
firm is about you, right? And so I knew I did not want anything about my name on the door of the firm. So what I did is I went to a number of clients. I went to new clients that had recently hired me, and I went to clients who had been with me literally since the beginning. And I just asked them some simple questions like, why did you hire me? Why have you stayed with me? What have you enjoyed about the relationship and the experience? And I just kind of listened, right? Just like let
Yeah.
them answer the question. And I took notes. And when I went back and reflected on my notes, the word to care came up over and over
Mm.
again. And so it would be something along the lines of like, yes, you care about our money and you want to make sure that we can retire, but you also really care about us and you care about our family. And you ask us about, our situation or what's new before we even get into the like money updates. And
Right.
so I went to the Google and I just Googled to care and I like translated into different languages, and Curo came up, which is Latin for to care. And it just, how like you have these light bulb moments where you
Yeah.
see something or hear something or read something and it's like that is it 100%. So that was how Curo Private Wealth was born.
That's such a great story. But I think it's such a great brand, and I'm proud to be associated with it now because it reflects so much of what we try to do every day. I think even in our one-on-one relationship as partners, I always want you to feel cared for and supported, that you're not in it alone, which was, of course, I think one of the reasons you even decided to sell your practice was for not wanting to do it alone anymore, but also the way we treat our team, the people who work with and for us, and especially what we do for our clients, where we build
Yeah.
a deeply caring relationship with them. I probably know more about and remember more about my clients' lives than I do about my own at this point. I can barely remember what I ate for dinner. But I could tell you, when my client's daughter graduates from college and the option she's considering for grad school.
Yeah, I know. We talk
So
about this all the time in our team that Atrisa's got the most amazing memory. Like, is it elephants or elephants,
it's
the animal
elephants.
with the
Yeah.
amazing memory? Yeah. So you're a resident elephant that you can just like pull things, from thin air
Yeah.
that
If I could
that
only
the
pull them
rest of
so
us.
easily from my own life.
Well, you're using all that space in your
Yes, there's
brain
not
for
enough space.
clients. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I agree. And I think I hope our team feels that too, that we really, care
Yeah.
about them and obviously, our clients as well. So that was really important to me. And to your point about me selling, this is a common question I get because I am not 65
Right.
or anywhere close to wanting to retire. And
You
a lot
better
of
not
people,
leave me.
of course not going anywhere, you're stuck with me. But a lot of people think about you sell your firm when you're preparing for retirement. And that's actually how I thought about it too. And so when I was first introduced to Blue Spring and we started having these discussions, that was what I said. I was like, no, thank you. I love what I do. Don't want to retire. Don't want to go
Yeah.
anywhere. And Stuart Silverman, who is, now the chairman and trying to slow down a little, but was very involved with Blue Spring at the time, was like, no, we don't want you to go anywhere. Like, obviously, we want you to,
Right.
keeping involved in the firm. But to the caring point, one of the questions that I would get when I was a sole practitioner was like, what happens if you're hit by the bus, right? The proverbial bus. And it was a very
Yeah.
fair question. And I did have a buy sell agreement with another advisor who was amazing and I trusted implicitly, and my clients would have been great in his hands. But he wasn't on my team. He wasn't part of my firm. He didn't know about clients as much as we know about clients because we're
Right.
talking about them. We're working on cases together during our team meetings. We're talking about what's going on, updates and whatnot. And so now that, if I was hit by the proverbial bus, God forbid, knock on wood,
God forbid.
I know that my clients would be really well taken care of and they wouldn't miss a beat. And that I think is also, I think it's important when you're in the financial services industry to really think that through because that relationship with your advisor is so intimate. It is so
Right.
important. One of the things I learned really early on was money is not the most important thing, but it's up there with oxygen. And it is, right? Like it is. It's a very important aspect of our life. And so now I feel so much peace of mind knowing that if something ever happened to me, I know my clients would be in phenomenal hands. And there would be a consistency, like a consistent
Right.
process and consistent investment management and consistent planning. So that feels really
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah. And I think we both share the goal of wanting to see Curo become more than just the two of us,
Mhm.
right? Where when people come to work with Curo, it's not just because they're signing up to work with Anne or with Atricia. They're signing up to work with a team that they know that the service and the guidance and the advice, everything is going to be consistent. And no matter who answers the phone, when they call in, they can trust that what they're getting is of the highest quality. And I think that's important to both of us that we create something that becomes bigger than just the two of us and who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. That's part of our legacy too, right?
Yeah,
We talk with
of
clients all
course.
the time about legacy. So,
Yeah, of course.
all right. So, one of the things we're planning on doing at the end of every podcast episode is
Hmm.
if we have a guest is asking what does living richly mean to you? So, since this is our first episode and it's you and I, Teresa, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you, what does living richly mean to you?
So I think it's always sort of a changing definition for me as I get older and I mature and experience more of life. But if I were to define it right now, I think for me it's living a life that one is successful for me personally, where I can experience and do all of the things that I love. And whether are things that I can do with money, right? Because I also love designer shoes, right? But also being able to have the experiences and to go to the places and do those things without worry that I'm somehow giving up something or sacrificing something. But then the other part of that for me too is being able to do good for the people around me. And I think that to me is what defines a rich life in my mind right now. Is that I not only can personally live a very successful life where I'm actually experiencing and living out the things I've always dreamed of, but that I also can do good for someone else, or what is the expression, lift as you climb. That to me is the rich life,
Mm,
is that as I am climbing I am also lifting in whatever way that looks like. And to leave the world, hopefully, in a better place than the way that I found it, in some way that I can impact even just the little bubble that I exist in. If I can make some difference or make something better or leave something in a better place, that to me would be, I would look back and say, yeah, I lived a very rich life. I lived a rich life because I was able to do those things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a very
Your turn.
similar answer, not surprising. And we didn't actually talk about this before
No.
we hit
Mm-mm.
record, so this is new for both of us. So when I think about living richly, the word that comes to mind is freedom.
Mm. I like that.
And it's similar to when we talk about work optional and what that definition means for our clients. So work
Right.
optional really means we can wake up one morning and say, you know what, we don't want to work anymore for
Yeah.
an income and have the financial independence and, the wealth to be able to make that decision. That to me is freedom. Now, it doesn't mean we're definitely going to decide that we don't want to work anymore, but we are working because we want to, because it brings us
Right.
joy, it fills our bucket, not because we have to from a financial lack. So freedom, I would say, is the number one word that comes to mind. Also living a well-rounded, richly
Mm-hmm.
rounded life where my health and my family and my spiritual health, so my physical health, my spiritual health, my mental health, where I'm not just rich on paper or with money, but
Right.
I'm rich in the health that I bring to the table, the time that I'm able to spend with my family, because they are part of my legacy as well, right? Like raising
Yes.
successful, independent, respectful men, future men, just
Yeah.
scary to think of right
No,
now, but
it's okay.
future men who are contributing members of our society, that is part of my legacy. And so being able to have the space and the time and the resources to, like you said, have experiences with my family is that to me is a very rich life. And I also too am so committed to trying to make this world a better place. And one of the things I'm deeply passionate about is trying to get more women into this industry. And so, even if it's one conversation I can have with a young woman about what this
Yeah.
career could bring to her life and the benefits, the many benefits, even though you don't think about this career as a great career for women, it is. We can
It
attest to it,
is.
it is.
Yes.
Um, and so I had a very negative experience early on in my career where I asked a female to become my mentor and she just completely shot me down. And so when I get emails or phone calls from young women who are like, "Can you just spend some time on the phone with me?" I can't say no. I won't say
Right.
no because even if
Right.
that one 15-minute or 20-minute conversation can inspire someone to get into this business and make a difference and we can just turn that dial or move that needle even a little, that to me I think is living richly for the world and for our industry. So very, very similar answer to
Yeah.
you.
No, but
Yeah.
I like that. It's important. I think specific even to our industry, because I think about that experience, almost 20 years ago and what that was like for me. And I would never want another woman of color to live that experience. And unfortunately, our industry is shifting, but shifting very slowly. But yeah, I think if you and I specifically, can do work where we mentor or impact or encourage even
Hmm.
a young woman to experience or to at least consider, this profession, because I think that women bring such a different perspective to our business. And I know that our clients see it and they notice it. I've had clients comment to me like, oh, you can tell this is a firm that women are running.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
because it brings such a different, I think, feel to a
Hmm.
business like this. So no, I'm
Yes.
absolutely, I agree with that about this
Yes.
industry. It's important.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. Great
Yes,
show. Let's do it again.
great show. We did it.
We did it. Yay. Please subscribe because this is our first show. So if you
Yeah,
want more of this to come, please do subscribe so you are alerted when we drop our next
yeah.
show. And
Why
thank you
would you
so
want to miss
much.
this?
I know it's going to be great. It's going to
It's
be
gonna be
great.
so good.
Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find out more about Curo at curoprivatewealth.com. So make sure
Mm,
to check us out too online. We're on all the social channels as well, except for TikTok. No TikTok.
yeah, no TikTok.
All right. Until next
All right.
time, take care.
Bye.
Live richly. Bye.